And Barry Alvarez has talked about having a list before, and I guarantee Luke Fickell has a list, and that's what I want to get into, is a list of people who I think might be on the list. Some of these I put out, but Ryan might have some as well. We can talk through some of these, the positives or negatives, but more importantly, what I really want to talk about is why they're on the list more than, like, will they be good? Because let's be honest, we don't know. We have no idea. I mean, let's just be completely honest. We don't know what is a good offensive coordinator as far as a play caller. Some have more resumes than other. The thing that I'm looking for, Ryan, and the most important thing for me is I don't want the air raid here. I don't think the air raid works at a school like Wisconsin. I don't think you can recruit the athletes fully to run it. I think you can recruit good athletes. And I also don't think you can, and this has to do with the money. Like, it's a lot of money, and the most amount of money is going to be spent on paying the skill position players.
Yep.
So if you have to pay quarterbacks and wide receivers and then figure out running backs, like, there's a budget here you have to figure out. So there's that part of it, let alone your own recruiting base in the Midwest. You're recruiting against Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan for the top skill players. You're not really going to pull people from California. The weather is a factor. That's lower on the list, but, like, wind, cold,
there's a lot
rainy,
of factors.
But the Ohio State offense, the Notre Dame offense, which I think you would describe as a power spread offense. In fact, I was actually texting with a former Badger. I didn't clear it if I could say them by name, so I will not. But I will say I sent him this text, and we were talking about what the Badgers should be doing on offense, and he emphatically agreed with me on it. So it's basically this is what I Googled, and the Google AI gave me this. So Notre Dame Fighting Irish offense under head coach, or excuse me, that's not head coach though, but offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock. And this is how they described it, and this is what I want here, Ryan. Zone read concepts. The offense will run more zone read concepts at quarterback, design runs, and plays out of the backfield. Pushing the ball vertically. This offense will push the ball vertically down the field in the pass game. Simplicity. Denbrock emphasizes simplicity and avoids overthinking schemes in short yardage or red zone situations. Manipulating formations. The offense will manipulate formations and create matchups to get players involved using motion. The offense will use motion to create different matchups. Now, I'm a little bit of I wouldn't call it an armchair expert as well, I'll say, because the Bears, the team that I follow in the NFL, just switched offensive coordinators to former Badger running back coach Thomas Brown, who was here for a year. What did he do? He's tightened up formations. They run a lot less formations against the Packers than they did the prior weeks. They basically ran an offense very similar to the Packers. They ran a lot of motion. It, does get you maybe some angles, does put the defense on their heels. It also shows your quarterback if they're in zone or man. Make their life a little easier. It does cause some confusion with the defense because if you're running a bunch of plays out of a few formations, they don't know what's coming. And then the other part of it is, I think is important, is this vertical. And the Ohio State offense, the way that people described it was, I think Justin Fields described, it's like, look deep. It's like deep, middle, short, run. And that's it. Like it's simple in how it's executed. If your guy wins off the line and he's open deep, let it deep. And there's someone going deep every play. And if that's not there, you quickly drop your eyes to the check down or you run. And I think but then more importantly, Ohio State's turned out a lot of great running backs in college to the pros. I think that power spread would work wonders here at Wisconsin. Let's get to the offensive coordinators.
All right, so these are the lists that I came up with based off of all the lists that have come out in the last 24 hours because everyone wants to know who's going to be the next offensive coordinator. Top of that list was actually the guy you mentioned just now, Mike Denbrock, offensive coordinator at Notre Dame. I think it's a resounding yes if they can make that happen, the Badgers.
I would say Luke Fickell likely has to take a pay cut. But yes, if they can get Denbrock, I don't know why he leaves Notre Dame for Wisconsin.
He's also the highest paid offensive coordinator in college football, reportedly.
I think Luke Fickell would have to give up some of his salary.
Yeah.
So I don't know why he'd leave, and if he did leave, it'd be for money. And I also don't know, not this is that important, he's not going to be here that long if he succeeds the way we want him to. Like if he's going,
always true.
So that's the other part of it. So I don't hate it. I would be into it, but it's it's a 2-year solution. Because either in 2 years everyone's fired, or in 2 years he's gone to be a head coach. And I'm not saying you have to hire someone forever. I just don't think the money will work. And why in the world would you leave Notre Dame for Wisconsin? I love the Badgers, but I don't know why you'd do it.
All right, I'll throw out another name who might leave Notre Dame for Wisconsin, and that's who you mentioned before, Gino Guidugli, who was at one point the tight ends coach for the Badgers for about a month before leaving to become the quarterback coach at Notre Dame with his former co-worker, Marcus Freeman. Would you want him as a Badgers offensive coordinator.
And he's got ties to Cincinnati. He was Luke Fickell's offensive coordinator in Cincinnati for a little bit as well.
He served under Fickell from 2017 until he left.
Yes.
He came with initially in that first wave.
Yes, and he's a young offensive coordinator. You could sell yourself as an up-and-comer. I mean, if his resume is, OC at Cincinnati, QB coach / passing game coordinator at Notre Dame, that's a resume that I could buy into, and I think he's obviously far more affordable, but that's not the most important part. That's a resume I can buy into. I like their offenses. He's got play calling experience, and he's around smart offensive minds. If we like Denbrock and we can't pull him away from Notre Dame, if you pull away his understudy, that's one I at least can get excited about. Like that one, I don't hate that one. It seems like where are you on that one?
I would feel okay with it. It wouldn't wow me. I'm kind of hoping for the wow hire, but that's also what we did with Phil Longo. Yeah. So maybe it's better to go safer. I'm not totally sure, but I'll go a little different with this one. Now reaching far back in Luke Fickell's experience. In 2014, he worked with then Ohio State offensive coordinator Tom Herman. Went on to become Texas's head coach and was fired as FAU's head coach on Monday.
Yep.
Your alma mater.
Yes.
What was your experience with the Tom Herman era at FAU?
I think Tom Herman falls into the Paul Chryst category. Now, don't freak out. Great offensive mind, great offensive coordinator, not a great head coach. And I think that's where he falls. I don't think he's past his prime as a play caller. FAU, love the school. They do not have the athletes or the ability to be able to get. But the nice thing would be he's coached at Texas, Ohio State, and FAU, which means he should have inroads in recruiting at all those schools. And depending on what Fickell allows him to do, could build an entire staff.
True.
Because his offensive coordinator at FAU was actually at Ohio State as well. The name escapes me, but he was at he's not I looked at the name. I said I don't want to put him down as an offensive coordinator candidate because I'd rather one of these other guys. But he's someone that has Ohio State ties with Fickell and Herman that again could come up and be the like a QB coach or he's also an offensive line coach. So I'm not saying they need to clean house, but a guy like Herman comes in with his own staff, a recruiting base because again Texas, Ohio State, and then in Florida was recruiting. He'd check those boxes.
Yeah. Okay, then I'll switch over to, speaking of offensive linemen, head coach Jason Eck, currently of the Idaho Vandals. Now, this is a guy, Badgers football alumni, played offensive line. Also played with current Badgers assistant offensive line coach Casey Roebuck during his time with the Badgers. And like you said, he runs a traditional running scheme, essentially, like similar to what the Badgers probably would have ran back in the day, but he throws in some of the spread formations that also create space in defenses. I like this hire. Weirdly, Idaho head coach to Wisconsin OC does make sense. The only thing is the Rybach connection is not enough for making me feel like it's really going to happen. I know Tauscher loves this guy too, and I'm not saying I'm opposed to it. I'm just saying that if I was a betting man, I'm betting on someone who has more direct ties to Luke Fickell, especially because Longo didn't work out, and there was not truly a direct connect there with Fickell. Yeah. And so that's where I would love them to look at him and consider him, but I still am leaning on someone that Fickell has a personal relationship with already. Any other names you want to throw out there? Yeah, I put some out on social media that I think are interesting here. Let me just pull up my tweet. The one was Stan Drayton, who was a running backs coach at Ohio State for a few years, been a running back coach with the Chicago Bears, was an assistant with the Packers for a year, just got let go, weirdly, almost like the same day that I think Longo was fired as OC. Drayton was fired as head coach at Temple. So Stan Drayton, former head coach at Temple, just let go, was at Ohio State with Fickell, and has coached in the NFL with the Packers and the Bears, and played college ball as a running back too. He could be an interesting hire. And then the other one, and I'm curious about this one, is Corey Dennis. Corey Dennis is, I believe, the what would you call it? The son-in-law of Urban Meyer. And he was at Ohio State until recently. I think he only overlapped with Fickell a little bit, but was at Ohio State until recently. But I would imagine Fickell's got a good relationship with Urban Meyer, so he might get a good recommendation on this. But Dennis is at Tulsa. The team is not winning at Tulsa, but they have had, like if you look at some of their offensive numbers, pretty, nothing to sneeze at. I would put other players in front of him, but I don't hate the idea of Corey Dennis.